Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The top stories that we're tracking for you this evening. The sensex and the nifty end in the red for the third day after failing to hold on to intraday gains. 22 lakh crore rupees investor wealth wiped out in the last 3 days. The rupee weakens to a new record low at 84. Finance Ministry weighs its options on the removal of indexation benefits for real estate. Sources say the government prefers grandfathering till July 2024. Also considering if people should have the option to choose between the old and the new capital gains tax regime for real estate. No final decision yet. That's an exclusive. An uneasy calm on the streets of Dhaka after Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina resigned and fled to India. Bangladesh President dissolves the parliament. India's External Affairs Minister says border guards on high alert and India is monitoring the situation of minorities in Bangladesh. The political upheaval in Bangladesh is a spot of bother for Indian consumer companies like Marico, Imami and Bajaj Consumer. Paint maker Kansai Nerolac may feel the pinch too. On the other hand, Indian textile companies expect more order inflows. Infosys seeks 10 days to reply to a pre-show cause notice from the Central GST Authority. Sources say 10 foreign airlines operating in India also get GST notices worth 10,000 crore rupees. International Air Travel Association calls the levy flawed and warns it could dampen India's aviation potential. Ola Electric 6,000 crore rupee IPO success receives over 4 times the number of bids for the shares on offer. Founder Bhavish Agarwal says wait for Q1 results when asked about the path to profitability. CBI lodges an FIR against Hindalco 8 years after registering a preliminary inquiry. Alleges violation of environmental clearance granted for coal mining in Orissa from 2000 to 2013. The FIR also names a former director in the Environment Ministry for allegedly providing undue benefits to Hindalco. Akasa Air will grow by 50% this financial year, says founder CEO Vinay Dubey as it enters the third year of operations. Adds the airline is well capitalized and no additional funding is needed at this point. That's an exclusive. Fears of an escalation in the Middle East intensify after US troops are attacked in Iraq. Israel bombs West Bank, killing 8 people. More than 39,600 Palestinians have been killed so far, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. Wrestler Vinesh Phogat stuns the world #1 and defending champion Susaki of Japan with a dramatic last gasp victory. Enters the semi-finals. Defending champion in javelin Neeraj Chopra easily qualifies for the final. Well, we'll get to the Olympics in just a bit, but let's start with the stock market action for the day. A day of volatility on the Lal Street as the Sensex and the Nifty failed to hold on to the intraday gains that they saw. In fact, both indices ended at the low point of the day, closing in the red, and that's for the third straight day. Now, in the last 3 sessions, investor wealth to the tune of 22 lakh crore rupees has been wiped out. Global cues are mixed today. European markets remain in the red, even as Wall Street opened in the green. Asia saw some bounce back as well, with Japan's Nikkei gaining 10% today after plummeting 12% yesterday. Shares have also bounced back in South Korea, but no such luck in Hong Kong and mainland China. That's the story as far as the Asian markets were concerned. A bounce back on witness. Let's talk about the rupee. It weakened to a new record low for the 5th straight day. Demand for US Treasuries and the dollar pushing the rupee closer to the 84 mark against the greenback. That's the dollar rupee for you. And Lata joins us now to bring us more on the money market action. Lata, what's weighing on the rupee?
Well, although the stock markets started with the bulls showing some gusto, there was no such bullishness in the rupee market. From the word go, the rupee was weak, and it actually in the opening trades itself went all the way to 84. The Reserve Bank came in and supplied dollars. And thereafter, of course, it came up to 83.5, 83.85, 90. But it kept sliding down throughout the day and ended almost at the lowest point of the day. The point is, dealers are not convinced that the selling is over. Although some people say the worst of the yen carry trade unwinding is over, most dealers I spoke to are not convinced. They said that they saw a lot of selling from custodial banks who operate on behalf of foreign funds. They said there was a lot of equity selling, but foreigners were still buying Indian bonds. The dealers assert that it is not a question of some selling and some trades unwinding. This is a basic reset of US and of global macros. So there is a lot of selling waiting to happen. there is a lot of uncertainty in the Forex markets and in the minds of the dealers on the state of the US economy, the extent of possible recession, the carry trades as well. And it's not just in yen. Carry trades are there in so many currencies, including the rupee, the Brazilian real, the Swiss franc. So there is a lot of carry unwinding that can still happen if any of these currencies appreciate according to them. And therefore, the Forex markets are certainly not sure that the worst is over for the rupee. In the bond markets, things were a little more sober with the rise in US yields. The Indian yields also rose about 2-3 basis points. But there is a lot of steadiness because everyone is waiting for what the Reserve Bank will say on Thursday. There is a widespread expectation that the central bank will have to sound a little dovish than it has sounded all these days, even if it keeps its stance unchanged.
Well, many thanks, Lata, for taking us through the currency market action. And of course, do remember to tune in to the MPC. All the developments will be live here on CNBC TV 18 on the 8th of August. Ola Electric 6,000 crore rupee IPO has received more than 4 times the number of bids for the shares on offer. Retail investors bid more than 3 times as much as the portion allocated to them. Meanwhile, the portion of qualified institutional buyers was subscribed by over 5 times, and that of non-institutional investors was subscribed more than twice. Speaking with our colleague Prashant Nair, founder Bhavish Agarwal said the pitch was tough, but the batsman hit a century. When asked about the path to profitability, Agarwal said wait for the first quarter results, while not giving any clarity on when the company would break even or achieve profitability.
We had very good engagements with investors all through our process in this, right? The roadshows and even in the last few weeks of after the prospectus, etc., was filed. So we were expecting a good response. And we also decided to price it in a way that a broad spectrum of investors across institutions, retail, HNIs see this. And I think that's what has ended up a very strong performance, like you said. If I use a cricket analogy, I think the pitch was tough, but the batsman hit a century.
You got this question from investors who you were pitching the IPO to, etc., and now you'll have to answer to the public market. So
yes.
Let me prepare you with that. What is the road to profitability, Bhavish, as far as Ola is concerned? Look, the opportunity is there. It's a multi-decadal theme. You're the largest player. But what is the road to profitability here as far as Ola Electric is concerned?
So, Prashant, that's a question many people have asked us, and I've answered in multiple forums. I can't give a specific answer, as you know, but I would tell investors that just wait for our Q1 results, which will be out soon after the listing on 9th August, and you will get to see the financials then. But thematically, if I tell you, if you look at our business in FY24 over FY23, we grew revenue 90%, and our revenue in FY24 ended up at around 5,300 crores. And our adjusted gross margins went up significantly from, I think, 7% to 16%. And our EBITDA went up from negative 43% to negative 19% in just 1 year. So this shows you the kind of improvement the financials already in the public domain showcase.
And you can catch that conversation with Ola Electric's Bhavish Agarwal at 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC TV 18. And there's more from the IPO corner. E-commerce platform First Cry opened its 4,200 crore rupee IPO for subscription. The overall issue subscribed 11% on day one. The employee portion was booked nearly 1.8 times. Retail portion subscribed 46%, followed by the high net worth portion, which was booked 8%. And more. Unicommerce Solutions offer has been subscribed by nearly 2.5 times on day one. The demand was led by retail investors who bid nearly 10 times as much as the portion allocated to them. The portion for non-institutional investors has been subscribed more than twice. The SoftBank-backed company, which manages e-commerce operations for brands, sellers and logistics service providers, is planning to raise 276 crore rupees via the initial share sale. Now, the finance bill has been tabled in Parliament. We learned from sources that the government is weighing its options on the removal of indexation benefits for real estate after the budget announcement to try and soften the criticism and the backlash. Sources say the government prefers grandfathering till July 2024 as relief to counter the removal of indexation. But we also must point out that no decision has been finalized as of now. That is the information that we have. The other option that the government is considering is that people could choose between the old and the new long-term capital gains tax regime, just like they can with the new and the old tax regime, which currently both run parallelly. Again, I must underscore that no final decision has been taken yet. Sources say the demand for an amendment has come from the real estate sector, so potential relief, if any, will be for the real estate sector. And we don't yet have the fine print of the finance bill that has been tabled in Parliament. We will have to wait to see the amendments that have been moved. IT major Infosys has sought 10 days to respond to the pre-show cause notice sent by the Central GST Authority, and this comes a week after the company was sent the notice to the tune of over 32,000 crore rupees by the Directorate General of GST Intelligence. Timsy is standing by now with details. Timsy, so there was relief given for 1 year, but what about the balance?
Well, sources have told CNBC TV18 that officials from IT major Infosys met the Central GST Intelligence Authority, that is Directorate General of GST Intelligence or DGGI, at Bengaluru office on Monday. Infosys has sought 10 days time to reply to the pre-show cause notice that was sent by the GST authorities on 30th of July, claiming tax dues of 32,403 crore rupees for the period between July 2017 till March 2022. Infosys, in a statement over the weekend, had said that they have replied to the queries raised for the year pertaining July 2017 till March 2018, and the authorities have waived the tax due pertaining to this particular financial year for about 3,898 crore rupees. However, on the remaining liability, sources say that the DGGI has issued the pre-show cause notice, which is sent to Infosys only after proper assessment and due diligence. DGGI gave clearance to the tax dues pertaining to FY18 as it was recently clarified in a circular issued by the government, which gives indemnity only for FY18. Thus, the claims for the remaining years, that is for the period between FY19 till FY22, stand as is for now. DGGI, remember, had sent the pre-show cause notice to Infosys on 30th July, raising a claim against the unpaid IGST under the reverse charge mechanism for services received from overseas branches. So let's see whether these GST demands against Infosys sustain or not. What is it that the company has to reply to the GST authorities, and whether they are able to satisfy them with their responses? We'll have to wait and watch out for this, and especially when it comes to the remaining liability. Back to you.
All right, Timsy, many thanks. And speaking of GST, the Director General of GST Intelligence has also sent show cause notices to 10 foreign airline companies operating in India. The notices are to the tune of 10,000 crores. We've learned from sources that Emirates has been sent a notice for allegedly evading taxes worth 7,550 crores. Etihad has been sent a notice for 1,660 crores. The tax authority has claimed that these notices were pertaining to unpaid taxes on the import of services by the Indian branches from their head offices. The International Air Travel Association has protested against the move, calling the levy of GST flawed. The association has warned that the move could dampen India's strong aviation potential. Now, opposition parties staged a protest in Parliament against GST on health and life insurance premiums. Union Minister Nitin Gadkari had first written a letter to Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman seeking the removal of GST. That was followed up by West Bengal's Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. She made the same demand. Now, opposition leader Rahul Gandhi has thrown his weight behind the push to provide GST relief on health and life insurance. The CBI has registered a case against Hindalco Industries and a former director of the Environment Ministry 8 years after registering a preliminary inquiry. The agency is probing allegations that Hindalco violated the green clearance for coal mining in Odisha from 2000 to 2013. Abhimanyu is here with the details. Abhimanyu, take us through this CBI FIR, which comes after 8 years of the preliminary inquiry being filed.
The CBI is probing the alleged violation of green clearances granted for coal mining in Orissa between 2000 and 2013. It's also probing the alleged bribes to officials from the Ministry of Environment and Forests. A corruption case has been filed by the CBI naming Hindalco Industries, then Director of MOEF T. Chandani, and several others as accused. Now, interestingly, the issue dates back to the duration between 2011 and 2013. The preliminary inquiry was filed in 2016 and the FIR was filed as as late as 2024. Now, according to the FIR, Hindalco Industries had allegedly violated the environmental clearances granted for coal mining in Odisha and had mined 3.045 million tons of excess coal than the permitted capacity. Then director of MOEF has also been allegedly misusing her office. As per the FIR, she granted further environmental clearances to the private company to double their coal mining capacity in prohibition of the rules laid down by the ministry in critically polluted areas. It remains to be seen how early any action would be taken in this case and whether any former officials or any private persons would be questioned in course of time.
Abhimanyu, many thanks. Now, the other big story this evening, Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's 15-year reign coming to an end. An uneasy calm prevails on the streets of Dhaka. Hours after Hasina tendered her resignation and fled to India, the army chief said that an interim government would be put in place. The students' body, which has been at the forefront of the protest, said they want Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus to serve as the chief advisor for the interim government. Today, the Bangladesh president dissolved the parliament, also ordered the release of opposition leader and BNP matriarch Khaleda Zia, who's currently serving a 17-year sentence in a Govt case. Yesterday was the culmination of months-long protests by students and activists. It first began largely as a peaceful movement against a High Court ruling in favour of reinstating 30% quota in government jobs for descendants of freedom fighters, but it gradually transformed into a full-blown movement against the government after the Hasina government began a brutal crackdown against the protesters. Over 400 protesters have been killed. Since yesterday, protesters stormed the Prime Minister's official residence, the Parliament building, and vandalized the premises. Back in India, the government has called for an all-party meeting to apprise political leaders of developments in the neighbourhood. Speaking in Parliament, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar said the government was in continuous touch with the Indian community in Bangladesh through diplomatic relations. However, the government is yet to clarify on whether or not Hasina has sought asylum in India.
On 5th August, demonstrators converged in Dhaka despite the curfew. Our understanding is that after a meeting with leaders of the security establishment, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina apparently made the decision to resign. At very short notice, she requested approval to come for the moment to India. We simultaneously received a request for flight clearance from Bangladesh authorities. She arrived yesterday evening in Delhi. We are in close and continuous touch with the Indian community in Bangladesh through our diplomatic missions. There are an estimated 19,000 Indian nationals there, of which about 9,000 are students. The bulk of the students, however, have already returned to India in the month of July.
That's the External Affairs Minister in Parliament. Meanwhile, Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus spoke with Network 18 on the situation in Bangladesh. Yunus, who faced several court cases under Sheikh Hasina, said the Prime Minister caused her own downfall. Yunus said he wants to stay away from politics at the moment. He spoke yesterday. Take a look.
I didn't contest any election in the past, so I'm not a politician. So I don't run in the election. I do my own work and I stay away from politics. In 2007, when another army takeover took place at that time, they invited me to become the head of the government. I apologized to them. This is not my job. You find somebody else. I'm not the kind of person to get involved with the politics. So I always stayed away from politics. This is how I'm trying to keep myself. I guess she made me more popular because everybody is supporting me. The more she hits me, the people come towards me. So in the process, she hurt herself.
Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus there. Now, the political upheaval in Bangladesh will be trouble for Indian consumer companies like Marico, Imami and Bajaj Consumer. On the other hand, textile companies expect to benefit from the situation. Mangalam is standing by now with more on the potential impact on India Inc. Mangalam.
Well, let's talk about stocks which are moving the most. We start with Marico, which is the top FNO loser in today's trading session, and that's largely because we have a fair amount of exposure to Bangladesh. When it comes to the FMCG stocks, Marico has the largest. Around 44% of their export exposure or international revenue comes in from Bangladesh. International revenue alone accounts for about 25% of their sales, so making their Bangladesh exposure to about 10 to 11 odd percent. Remember, the results of the company were good. The stock was well bid up, so maybe the incremental pressure of long unwinding has the stock lower by 5%. Analysts believe that this could impact their overall annual revenues by no more than 1 to 2% itself. The other one that we're looking at are a bunch of these garment makers. It's interesting times. Until last year, we were talking about the China plus one factor. Now, maybe because of its big, exposure to Bangladesh, a lot of these garment manufacturers will be looking at India as a hub as well, which explains why there is a big move on names like Kitex Garments or Gokaldas Exports, etc. Because all these international players will now look at exposing themselves beyond Bangladesh. So the Bangladesh plus one factor playing out as well. The other couple of stocks that we are looking at, we have VIP, which has its capacity in Bangladesh, about 30-35% coming in from there. They have their results today, so commentary around Bangladesh would be extremely crucial to track as well. That stock too under a wee bit of pressure. For all the other FMCG companies, their exposure to Bangladesh is limited, sub 5%, in most cases around 2 to 3% itself. And the prospects of better rural recovery actually are taking away from any sort of Bangladesh related concerns, which is why all the other FMCG stocks are doing well in today's trading session. And finally, we have Trent and Jubilant Food as well. Trent gets some of its orders from Bangladesh among all the other countries as well. So there could be a bit of a supply disruption. And Jubilant Foodworks has about 28 Domino's stores in Bangladesh, accounting for 1% of their consolidated sales. But the recovery in India is something that the street is eyeing, which is why that stock too higher today.
Mangalam, many thanks. Up next on India Business Hour, Akasa Air will grow by 50% in this financial year, says the founder CEO Vinay Dubey, as the airline enters the third year of operations. That exclusive coming up. And you can catch all of CNBC TV 18's news and updates on Facebook, X, Threads, Instagram and JioCinema. In global news, tensions in the Middle East continue to escalate. At least 8 people have been killed, several injured after Israel conducted 2 airstrikes against the Jenin refugee camp in West Bank. Israeli forces have also arrested 16 people in the region. Meanwhile, reports say that 4 Hezbollah fighters were killed in another Israeli strike in Lebanon. At least 5 U.S. military personnel were injured in an attack against a military base in Iraq. U.S. officials have confirmed that 2 rockets were fired at the air base in western Iraq. The U.S. Defense Department has blamed Iran-aligned militia group for the attack and called it a dangerous escalation. Well, the race to the White House is heating up. As per reports, Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris has selected Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to be her running mate. Walz, a U.S. Army National Guard veteran and a former teacher, was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 2006 before being elected the governor of Minnesota in 2018. So Tim Walz likely to be Kamala Harris's running mate. Back home, it's been a week since heavy rains triggered landslides in Wayanad. Kerala's Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan, in a press conference today, announced that the official death toll in the tragedy stands at 224, even as reports say the number could be higher. The Chief Minister said that no stone has been left unturned in the efforts to locate missing people. The state is planning to implement a comprehensive rehabilitation package for the landslide-affected people. And speaking of rehabilitation, Reliance Foundation is working in coordination with the Kerala government to deliver immediate relief to the people of Wayanad, including milk and fruit. It also plans to work on sustainable initiatives to address prevention, strengthen early warning and early action. Akasa Air will grow by 50% this financial year. That's the word in from founder CEO Vinay Dubey as the airline enters its third year of operations. Speaking exclusively to CNBC TV 18, Dubey said the airline is well capitalized and no additional funding was needed at this point. What should we expect realistically in terms of capacity addition for this financial year?
So this financial year, we've said that we will grow by 50% compared to the last. Last financial year, we grew 300% compared to the previous. So 50%, 300%, these are numbers that we haven't seen before for an airline at this stage. And by the way, we're not talking about going from 1 to 2. These are on a pretty fast base. I mean, I think we've talked about it before, but Akasa in its first year has broke, every conceivable record globally in the 123-year history of global aviation. So 50% in this particular fiscal year.
And when we last spoke, you said that you were also looking at doubling pilots. What is the position on that front? Are you still going ahead with that plan?
Yeah, in fact, Shireen, this is, as Belson talked about, we're building not just a brand for our consumers, but being employee-centric from day one is something we've talked about, right? We've talked about being, having service leadership, cost leadership, employee centricity, and, building this on a platform of world-class safety. So employee centricity has been a super important element of who we are. I'm happy to report that we've got over 800 or approximately 800 pilots already with Akasa. So at this point, we've actually stopped pilot hiring.
Okay.
We've got, and part of the reason we've been able to attract pilots is because of our employee centricity, the patterns that we offer, the lifestyle patterns that we offer our employees, the focus we've got on training, the new generation of aircraft that we're flying. We're very, the respect and transparency with which we hope we treat them. And not just pilots, but all our employees. So at this point, specifically, we're no longer hiring pilots, and we will be that way for some period of time.
Okay. And the legal issues that you had with pilots, is that a thing of the past? And what have been the lessons learned from that experience?
To be honest, I think we're all of that is well in the past. And for us, we're just focusing on making sure that we continue down our path of being employee centric, and so that's where we are today.
And you can catch that interview with Vinay Dubey and Belton Coutinho of Akasa at 10 p.m. right here on CNBC TV 18. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV 18. Stay tuned.